Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Founders and Leaders series, where we talk with the builders of the future of research, insights, and technology in this industry. I am delighted to be joined today by Matteo Cera, who is the founder and CEO of Glaut. Matteo, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Good to have you. Tell us, whereabouts are you joining us from today?
I am joining from the sunny and extremely warm Italy, close to Lago Maggiore. That's where I spend time in the summer and work from here as well.
What a beautiful part of the world. Yeah, it's a big heat wave hitting Southern Europe right now. So if you're watching the video,
it's terrible.
Apologies for...
I'm literally sleeping in the garage just because it's 5-10 degrees colder than any other bed at home.
Well, I'm a few miles north of you in London, and we're getting part of that. It's in the high 20s here. So if I'm a little red-faced, then you know why. But so, Matteo, tell us a little bit about Glaut. Tell us, what is Glaut, and how would you explain it to someone like my mother, who has no idea what this industry is all about?
Yeah, sure. We're a software company. We are an AI-powered research platform to design, run, and analyze what we call AMIs, AI-moderated voice interviews, which is a new research data collection methodology to deliver insights 10 to 15 times faster and 2 to 3 times cheaper than traditional research methods.
Okay. Excellent. And how does that work? Just tell us a little bit about AI moderated interviews. What's the experience like?
You can think about an AMI as really a hybrid between a CAWI and an IDI. As a survey, as a CAWI, an AMI comes in a single URL link that people would open up from their desktop or mobile phones and answer to that individually, wherever they are, when they want to. Similar to a survey, it's a set of predefined, structured questions. But differently from a survey, an AMI will allow the respondent to answer by voice. And in an AMI, the software powered by AI will moderate the conversation and ask follow-up and probing question between one key question and the second key question. So that means that from a very structured, somehow predefined survey, it becomes a real personalized, more engaging type of conversation. And it happens via voice, which is obviously a more genuine but natural way of communicating versus typing or clicking. So that's how an AMI works on the respondent side, from the respondent side. And then the AMI on the software is analyzed and coded to extract all the information, the data that is previously unstructured in a long verbatim that is hard to read at scale, but it gets coded and analyzed to extract the insights of the full research project.
Okay, so this is great. So the participant is speaking back to the AI interviewer. Is the AI interviewer, is that in text or are they voice-based questions as well?
We provide both options, but we've seen incredible results with voice as well, just because of the novelty of that. For panelists that are used to standard text questions and clickable options, having a moderator that speaks to them in their natural language is somehow something cool and new to experience. But depending from the researcher, so from our customer perspective, they will choose to have the text option or the voice option.
Yeah, that's my preferred way of interacting with AI these days. I think 80% of my conversations with ChatGPT are voice-based, both in and output. And yeah, it's fantastic. I love it.
And it is still clunky at some times, and
Right.
It will feel unnatural to some people. But yeah, the good news is that every 3 to 4 months, LLMs improve. Voice will sound more and more natural. And I think people will feel less awkward in talking to their phones or laptops. And probably, 5 years from now, we will really forget how to type stuff and just talk to our computers and other devices that will emerge in the meantime.
I think so. It'll feel like using a quill pen or something from a previous century. So yeah, very good. And what drew you to build the business? Where did you start? What were you doing before you founded Glaut and what drew you to start the business?
Sure. Well, I've been working in tech entrepreneurship for the past 12, 13 years. So this is the third company that I built, but I was trained as a consultant. I worked in McKinsey for a few years and I've done hundreds of interviews and consumed and probably committed dozens of research projects to agencies. So when I met Giovanni, my tech co-founder, and he was playing around with one of the earliest versions of the GPTs, and he showed me this conversational prototype where basically a bot at that time, I think we were familiar with that name, was asking question and understanding answers that was via text still. It really clicked to me and said, that could replace many of the qualitative interviews that I was doing as a consultant. So we put together a prototype and that was late 2023 and cold outreach to a few researchers. And that led to the first demos. And the feedback was quite enthusiastic. And from there, it was just a no-brainer.
Okay, so you came from outside of the market research industry. You're a strategy consultant, tech founder by background rather than a researcher. What have you learned about the research industry? What have been some of the surprising things that you found, and what are the lessons that you've learned building this third business?
Yeah, I'm a newbie in research, and I think there are some pros and cons into that. Something important that we learned across past couple of years is that however your tech works and all the cool things that your product does, researchers and research in general is still based on trust, from a person to another. So if you don't build that layer of trust and personal relation with your clients, it doesn't really matter what your product does. And that is probably different from other industries where a great product can win by itself with a login page. And that is something that to us was something new. And I remember talking about it with one of the OGs in research, Frank. I'll not mention him, not to put him on the spot, but yeah, he said, that's normal. That's how research works. It takes time. You need to build the trust first, and then maybe they will buy the product. On the other side, something that was amazing is how enthusiastic the researchers are to try new tools. I can understand some of them might feel a bit anxious and uncertain about how the future will look like. But at the bottom, I felt strong curiosity and enthusiasm from most of them in just trying new things out and improving their skills and understanding how the new generation of software will work. So that was like a big wave that hit us with hundreds of potentially interested counterparties.
That's interesting that it's the human relationship angle that you pick up on as someone who's come from outside. And you're right, I've not seen very many successful product-led growth models in research tech that have been just, like you say, a landing page, like a MailChimp proposition.
Log in, put your credit card.
Yeah. There's very, very few. Do you think that is a reassurance? Do you think that's kind of an insurance policy for researchers who might be anxious about the role of AI and whether they'll be replaced in the future? You see the human relationship angle as being quite sticky?
100%. And I think this is connected to to me, a bit of a misunderstanding in the space. At least that's our hypothesis behind Glaut. I feel that still a few researchers feel anxious about their job somehow. And our perspective is whatever the software will do, it still needs a pilot, a chef, whatever analogy you want to use, that actually puts the brains in structuring, defining, scoping, and, asking the software to do X, Y, or Z. And that leads me to thinking that the researcher role will evolve from partially manual, partially brain to a heavier brain component and using software as an extension of their previously manual capacity. But that means that the researcher role will also improve in their knowledge and capabilities and skills used in the day to day. I don't think there is anything sexy or interesting in dealing with reading hundreds of pages of transcript or filtering an Excel table if the software can do it for you. But still the researcher will play that piloting role. That is the most important one, and I think that is what and why they're paid for, delivering the best insights for the customer.
Yeah. There's a parallel, I think, isn't there, between the company that you used to work for, the strategy consultants, the McKinseys of the world. It seems I've read two quite extreme views at either end of the spectrum, one of which says AI will replace McKinsey strategy consultants because they'll no longer be needed and people can just interact and get the knowledge they need from the AI tools. The other end of the spectrum says, actually, that's not why people buy solutions from companies like McKinsey. Actually, it's much more about the human embedding, the reassurance, the advocacy, all of the different types of angles. And they're enthusiastic adopters of AI, like a lot of agencies. Do you see those parallels as well?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think McKinsey or other consultancy are going anywhere. Just the role will evolve as much as we just said on research. Still, people, you said, they buy the knowledge they need. The knowledge they need is a big thing to define, and helping those CEOs understanding what parts of knowledge they need and, what are the gaps that they're not, recognizing, and what are the pain points that they should attack faster, and having that personal relation and helping them explore their own fears and explore their own lacking. I think that's where the best advisor, consultants, and researcher will still play. And that's at the bottom of any business relationship. So I don't think that's going anywhere. That doesn't mean that the same consultant, same researcher in their backyard will use hundreds of different tools to provide that advice in a faster, better, and hopefully cheaper way than before. But that's another story. So yeah, I'm more into the camp of advisors and consultants in general are still there. They will just deliver in a different way, the type of knowledge that we're delivering before.
Yeah.
Peaking, my job as a consultant was mainly spending 15, 20 hours a day in doing interviews, writing PowerPoint, and filling Excel tables of them. Is that something that I wish I would go back to? Not really. I love that job because I could meet the client and deliver him or her some results and some answers to the question they had. But I don't miss the grueling nights in filling those Excel sheets, to be honest. So I wish I had a better software back then.
Yeah. Well, here's to strategy consultants and research experts getting more sleep with the advent of AI tools. So let's hope so. Okay. So you
maybe, or maybe they will find something else to spend time on. But yeah, that's a story.
So tell me about the types of researchers that you work with mainly. Is it with in-house teams? Is it with agencies, consultancies? Where does Glaut tend to find most of its adoption?
Great question. We focus our go-to-market and our strategy in partnering up with researchers. So we don't serve directly CMI teams, besides when they do have a research knowledge or a research team inside as well. Glaut's best use is in partnership with and piloted from an experienced and sophisticated researcher that knows what they want out of a research project. We don't believe that research needs to be made simpler by whatever definition. We think that researchers know what they expect from research and know what they want to deliver to their clients, but they want to do it faster, they want to do it cheaper, and so on and so forth. So our target persona is an experienced researcher, a sophisticated one that has, clear ideas on what to expect from a research project. That means that we tend to work mainly with research agencies or with brands that have a research team that is hands-on and wants to do Glaut as a do-it-yourself type of software.
Okay, interesting. So it's really people who have that level of practitioner expertise to be able to say, here's how I can use Glaut as part of the process. Here's where I need to make adjustments. Here's where I need to intervene. Here's where I can trust more of the AI. Is that how you experience it?
100%. The researcher experience will still is needed to define what to research on, what are the key topics, what is the right tone, what are the target population that we want to interview, and what are the key deliverables to be delivered to the final customer, and still do that delivery to the customer. We know that many researchers still prepare to present in person those findings and keep that relationship that they have since 2 or 20 years with their customer. So we are positioned to become their backbone, their technological infrastructure to do their job in a faster and hopefully cheaper way than what they were doing before, while not compromising on the quality of insights. There are mainly 4 KPIs that we track: 2 about the quality of the insight, and the quality spins into the scale of the project. There is a correlation between how many people we can actually interview and interact with and the depth of the interviews that we're doing. And these 2 components result into quality. And then the efficiency, so the speed of the project and the cost of the project. These are the components that we track with our own researchers. With our own clients, i.e. the researchers. Glaut itself does not position itself as a research firm providing research services to brands direct. We partner up with research agencies as their tech infrastructure.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm very intrigued by your quality metric. Speed and cost, efficiency metrics, I understand. The scale, I understand. What are the parameters of quality and depth, and how do you measure that?
Well, it's a longish answer, but at this stage, we're mainly interested in understanding the number and the variety of topics that our follow-ups and probing are able to extract from an interviewee in a set of questions. So let's make the parallel. If in a survey, I would have been giving you 4 or 5 options, whoever is answering based on those 5 options. So you don't have a 6th, 7th, or 8th option at all. And even less, you have a breakdown of sub options in those type of answers. In an AMI, in an AI moderated interview, you don't have predefined options. You could find out 12, the same 5 options as of the survey, or you could find out that there were like 24 different preferences, and each of them has maybe 3, 4, or 5 different subcomponents. So in terms of depth and quality, this is one of the key metrics that we track, which is the extension, the variety of answers that we get through the first layer of questions and the probing, once we have interviewed everybody and analyzed and coded them compared to the options that we had at the beginning in a standard survey type of format. Okay. Another thing that we are now looking at is the emotional nuances that you could grasp from the answers. In a normal survey format, you wouldn't be able to get that type of nuances as the person showing anxiety, surprise, or fear while answering to this specific option. And through the wording and in the close future, the tone of voice, we will be able to add that emotional layer in the output and the deliverables. So not only what they spoke about, but how did they speak about a specific topic. So these 2 components are as of today, what we refer to as quality.
That's really interesting because both of the comparatives that you're talking about there are with survey research, not with qualitative research. You said the other angle there was obviously the scale. So
Yep.
you're able to, in a very structured way, to say, actually, we've achieved measurable improvements in the richness, depth of insight with the either number of variables or the emotional richness that we've understood, and have that as a sort of trackable metric going forward. Yeah.
Exactly. And what you asked me, I thought you were asking me something different, which I presume you asked. When I compared Amy's to Cowie to surveys, is because at the moment, I think the best comparison is with a structured survey. And the use cases that we're seeing Amy's being used mostly from our researchers are more born in the quantitative spectrum of research. So despite some other players and maybe part of the industry speak about qual at scale, I think that we think at Glaut that Amy's are an extension of quant rather than a replacement of an IDI. We do suggest our client not to use Amy for 120 minutes type of deep dives with 10 people. But anything that is born on the quantitative spectrum, definitely Amy is an extension of it. So an extension and I think a deeper understanding of the answers through Amy versus a normal survey.
Okay, great. I'm really interested to talk about a couple of other topics, your experience working with agencies and a bit more about building the business. But before we move on from Amy, you talked about some things that are in the pipeline for you about tone of voice. If you look forward, and this is an impossible question for anyone in the world of AI, but if you look forward 6 months, 12 months, can you share any insight into what you see as the trends in this sort of conversational AI space? How do you see it developing?
A few ones. Obviously, LLMs are constantly improving, despite the improvements seem to be now a little bit more linear and less exponential than they were before. But I think some obvious one will be a better capacity. I don't know if you tried, I'm sure you did, speech-to-speech products at the moment, where you are talking to the software is talking to you back without the need of pressing a button or anything. So somehow the software is understanding when you are done with your thought, but it still feels a bit clunky. Sometimes it speaks over to you more than another person would do. Maybe because we do see in another person that you're not moving your lips yet, that you're nodding and that you are acknowledging what I'm saying. So you're not ready to talk. And that doesn't happen there. I think that in probably 12 months from now, the level of speech to speech will be there to actually convert what is now I'm talking, I'm sending you the answer, and now the software is talking to me and I'm waiting to a real conversation. So that's one. And second, the emotions. We spoke about it before. Humans, and especially trained qualitative moderators, are excellent at picking up uncertainty, doubt, fear, anxiety, and all the emotional nuances from the tone of voice and the facial expression of people. And software will try to do the same. And we do see a future where Glaut will be able to pick on these emotions and find a reasonable, empathetic way to pick on these emotions during the conversation, to follow up on them without the follow-up being grounded only on what the person said explicitly in the text, but also on how they said what they said. Those two are probably the future.
Yeah, more natural voice-to-voice conversations. You're right. I have played around with a couple of these things with Hume AI and 11 Labs, and they're increasingly impressive. You know, you can interrupt them, you can speak over them, but the missing piece that you just mentioned is if I'm silent, but I pull a skeptical face or I smile, obviously those models are going to miss that. Are you saying
Yeah.
we're likely to see much more fully multimodal interviews that can read the video signals as well at the same time as the voice? Is that where this is going?
100%. Not, I'm not sure yet. I don't know yet how long it will take people to accept that from a privacy perspective and so on and so forth. For example, in Glaut, we've taken the product decision of not doing video yet. We have seen that with early prototypes, which we had video interviews, which 40, 50% drop in video interviews versus voice only. So multimodal means video by default. So there will be a curve of adoption. That's my hypothesis. When now I think will be more and more adopted. And then maybe in the next years, video will be more adopted. So we'll see less of a drop in completion rate because the interview is videoing you. So yes, multimodal will be part of the future. I don't know yet how long it will take the respondents, the panelists, to actually accept that.
Yeah, I agree. The sort of social lag, the behavioral changes that are needed are often underestimated, I think, by some of the builders. Okay.
Especially if the incentives stay where they are,
Yeah.
if the panelists do not do an effort in creating different frameworks and different incentives to have panelists answer to the right type of interviews. And with right, I mean to the type of interviews and research projects that each panelist should answer because of their interest, because of their, working experience and so on and so forth. I think that the clickable survey hopefully will be a legacy from the past. The clickable survey that everybody can take will be a legacy of the past. And hopefully in the future, despite that will mean an increase in cost to get better, higher quality in terms of respondents, we'll see more engaging, more personalized type of research project answered by people that should answer to each of those research projects.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Let's just talk a bit about your partners and customers right now. So agencies, research agencies, research specialists, how do you see those businesses evolving? What do you see different types of agencies that you work with, different rates of technology or AI adoption, or maybe different attitudes towards how they evolve their businesses?
Yeah, I mean, two main trends come to mind. One, at the beginning, and we still did during this call, we were talking about comparing to quant, comparing to, the quanta and comparing to qual. And I think these methodologies are merging and are converging into basically expecting both the scale and measurability of a quantitative approach, but also the depth, the openness, and the emotional nuances of a more qualitative approach. And I think that some agencies are already recognizing it, and they are already positioning themselves forward in not splitting researchers between those two branches and asking researchers to be able to conduct hybrid mixed projects. And I think those will be the winning agencies in the future. I don't think any customer is like, oh no, I just want quant, or they want answers to their business problem. They don't care about the methodology, or not everyone cares. They care more about how good the answer is. And they rely on you as a researcher to find the right methodology and to find the right way to get to the answer. But yeah, the legacy distinction is, to me, blurring. And the second one is the way that agencies are stepping into, I hate myself while I say this, to the AI revolution.
Yep.
But basically means converting people with 10, 15, 20, 30 years of experience in doing very similar work to what probably the last revolution was going from paper to online surveys 25 years ago. But after that, basically, it has been more or less the same, the way that people were doing their craft. And now customers are expecting agencies to use AI we have seen almost as a, hey, show me that you're using AI, whatever that means, whatever that cost is, because the customer has their own agenda, their own business priorities, their own stakeholders to report to. And therefore agencies have to step in and start using new tools and new software that should make their work faster and higher quality, but at the beginning will anyway cause some headaches and some adaptation. So you do see, I'm seeing two opposite side of agencies, the ones that are more on the skeptical side will focus more on the limits, will poke holes everywhere, and will lead with, this is not going to change my work. I'm gonna, I'm still who am I despite the software around me. And agencies that want everybody in the agency to be onboarded, that ask us tips and tricks on how to do faster and better other things despite the research project. I mean, additional to in other parts of the agency, hey, what do you suggest us as a CRM or a financial software and so on and so forth, that somehow look into us as a way to become as much AI powered as possible. And not only because the customer asked them to, but because they already are seeing the value of this new layer of technology.
Yeah, interesting. I see the same similar sort of trends, and I think I'm in your camp. I'm much more bullish about the future of agencies than I think some observers are. Yes, there are the, let's say, the skeptics and the laggards, but I think many of those have moved into the enthusiast camp over the last couple of years, where they're more like the adopters that you're describing, trying to see how can they actually knit AI across their processes because they can see the benefits.
You do see both, right? I mean, whatever you use, X or LinkedIn, I think the last couple of weeks I've seen the blueberry, how many bees are in the blueberry thing, like 20 times. Like, really? It's like, oh
Yep.
yeah, that's not, so what? Are we, the general sentiment, what I'm like is that even that we have some customers that start on the skeptical camp, that did a couple of pilots, and now they're like, oh gosh, I've seen improvement in me, improvement in the product in the past 3 months. Now I can really see what, in 12 months time that will be, and I really want to be part of it. Most of the times it comes from the top in a way or the other. It comes from the C-level in being, let's say, on the skeptical camp or on the progressive camp. But yeah, we'll see a move, and maybe some will just not evolve at all.
Yeah. I'm especially, I found your other observation particularly compelling, that the capability for AI moderated interviews is enabling qualitative specialists to be more quant, and for survey and quant specialists to inject more depth, qualitative richness into their survey focused work. It feels like you're right. The boundaries are blurring, and the language may need to change over the next while as we figure out what do we mean by quantitative and qualitative in this new world.
I couldn't say it better. When we talk with one or the other, we use different language and we show different capabilities of the software. And that doesn't mean that we try to fit a triangle into a square, but we believe the product can serve both sides in different ways. So for example, for the ones that are more quantitative, that are used to do surveys on Qualtrics, on Decipher, and have branches and so on, we show how Glaut can work with other software, can be embedded in those software. And basically, you can keep doing your thing in Qualtrics, but have Glaut power 10 or 12 open-ended questions within your survey. And for the qual people, for the qualies, we speak about agile, quantifiable qual, AQQ, as a way of saying, you're not doing, we don't suggest to do an IDI with Glaut, but if you have a project that is lower budget, that needs to be done fast, where the client is asking for hundreds of touch points, this is where you should look like. You should look into Glaut. So yeah, even we are using different landing pages and different demo scripts to serve both.
This is great. Sounds like we need a new directory category, agile, quantifiable, qual. It's the first time I've heard it, but it sounds like a great new acronym. Good. Now, the other things that I'd really like to understand are your experience building a business. So this is your third startup, it sounds like. And, maybe some of the lessons you could share are not exclusive to Glaut, but I'd love to understand a bit more about that journey. What have been some of the biggest learnings as you've built a technology business? And are there any things that you would share with other founders? Maybe, things you wish you'd done differently, or mistakes you're willing to own up to, or recommendations that you think will help people learn?
We mentioned it slightly at the beginning. I think in B2C, in business to customer, the product wins. In B2B, there is a personal relation component that is at the basis of many B2B successes. So I think that a learning was to really focus on those relationships, especially at the beginning, to take the time and patience to educate clients, to do pilots, and even that they will not turn into customers, but maybe they do in 6 months, and they come back and they are thankful that you showed them how to run a research project a different way. So that's definitely one. A big mistake we have done in Glaut at the beginning was to overly focus on new customers. So we were continuously looking for new pipeline. And on the other side, for the customers that we were able to convert, we didn't have any KPI about, if the customer was expanding and being successful at Glaut or not. We were really focused. Being a small team, you want to have a few KPIs, a few North metrics. And most of our KPIs were about new pipeline. So at some point early this year, we said, we're getting this very much wrong. We should, focus on the customer expansion and not only on the acquisition. So the learning for me is your KPIs will influence your behavior in the day to day. And you tend to set KPIs a few times in the year. So, be careful about those ones and, be critical and review them often, because sometimes they influence your day-to-day behavior. So we were not looking into huge opportunity of expanding our accounts because, 2 people were focused only on new pipeline.
Okay. Yeah. So look to the growth as well as to the new business pipeline. Yeah. Interesting. What else have you found that's different about building a business in market research, a technology business in this industry versus the previous startups you've been involved in? You mentioned about the importance of human relationships, but has there been anything else that has surprised you, or a lesson that you think you'd pass on to someone else entering this industry?
Research is a small space. I think I did maybe 10 conferences this year, the Quirks, the IX, Asomars of the world, and you tend to see the same people over and over again. That means that we are in a, tight-knit type of group, and people will know each other quite fast. That means that, reputation, the way that you treat other partners and other stakeholders, the way that you speak about the industry, the way that will precede you in many of the conversations. So differently from other industries that poke in different areas of a company at different levels, or that have a much wider potential customer base, I feel that research, and especially research agencies, are really a small community where trust and reputation is a super important component, much before product itself. So that I didn't know about it. And that to me was surprising, both in a negative and a positive way. Negative because when I started recognizing people, I said, is that really it? Is that is that always us meeting every 2, 3 weeks? And on the other side, I said, okay, but this is actually a great opportunity because if we do a good job with a few of them every quarter, that will pile up and will build a strong wave of customers, and it will be sticky because it will be based on that layer of trust and reputation.
Yeah. Okay. But from a branding perspective,
Isn't it? Don't you?
is
How do you find?
I,
How do you?
I have skipped a couple of conferences myself this year for the same sort of reason, which, I've seen a lot of those people recently, and I'll see them again in Prague in September at the SMR event. So I actually didn't go to New York for Quirks. I didn't go to Amsterdam for IEX this year. We were a little bit too busy on other things. So I do understand what you're saying.
Such as lacquer. No, I had similar thoughts, but I even though I know that I will meet a group of people that I already know, and few of them will be entirely new. I've taken now the approach of, okay, so that will be a good way of, nurturing past relationships in a different setting than, hey, let's have a quarterly catch up call on Zoom. So I still enjoy a lot the fact of meeting people in person. That's to me, my first company is still, it's the home services marketplace, nothing to do with research. We do cleaning and babysitting in thousands and thousands of homes. And I rarely meet customers. I met customers only when they were so angry with us, they would actually look for our main office and come to see me. And that was great. I mean, it was anyway, they would be super, they were coming because they were angry for a reason or the other. So it wasn't every time a pleasant conversation, but it was at least a way to have a human conversation with a customer that tried our product. On the other side of the spectrum, this being a community, I feel that, people that use Glaut are talking about to other people that come to me. And I just spoke with Joan or Jane, and she had a great experience. I'd like to try it too. So I see it as a strength. Despite in the beginning, I was a bit scared about the size of the market.
Yeah. There is a lot of recommendation, word of mouth, that happens in the industry, which can cut both ways, because I'm in a number of different online groups, email groups, Slack groups, and when people are happy, they're happy to share. And when they're frustrated, then that can also be
100%.
a prompt for people to tell others how they're feeling.
Absolutely.
But, branding experts would...
We had to say a negative experience is, 5 to 10 times more spoken about positive one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The nature of virality. But, hopefully if you are exposed to the same people repeatedly, that's an important component of B2B brand building. Repeat exposures build salience over time. So hopefully that will work as well.
Something that surprised me, if I may add, was the whole thing about panelists and fraud. And, every time we are exposed to $1 incentives, $1.5 incentives for 20, 30 minutes of people's, I'm really asking myself, who is taking the surveys, right?
Yep.
And I don't have the answer yet. I think that our technology can help in raising the bar. For example, we introduced a voice-only mode so that chatbots at the moment are not able to answer. Maybe they will build voice chatbots in the future, but not yet. But that surprised me. I was like a bit, we had a very long discussion internally. How come the industry was, it seems that this year, because of the US company being prosecuted, everybody was surprised about this. But let me ask you, wasn't this, part of somehow not so well hidden secret of the industry for a long time?
Absolutely. This has been known at various levels. The challenges in data quality, the level of deliberate fraud, but to be honest, poor quality feedback from badly incentivized people who are answering terrible survey designs. That is the crux of where a lot of bad data comes from in the industry. People talk a lot about bots and fraud and the challenges around there, which are very real. But, one of the other challenges is the participant experience and the level of reward, which is what you started with. So yeah, I can understand why that would have surprised you coming into the industry fresh.
Yeah, it was a bit shocking to think, oh wow, is that new for you? Wasn't that somehow obvious? But the future looks brighter, I feel, in the sense that we cannot change unilaterally the incentives that people want to pay. But I think that software and cloud in that category, we can help having more personalized and openly engaging conversation versus standardized surveys. And at the same time, I think that survey design with software, not only with cloud, just, with the help of software in general, can improve. And we have to be honest with ourselves. If some researchers were not designing good surveys, that's okay. And we have to accept it. But can they design better surveys with the use of technology? Likely so. So yeah, let's do it.
Right. Okay, good point, I think, on which to wrap things up. I think we've covered lots of the conversational AI moderated interview space. We've talked about agencies and research specialists and how they're evolving, and the future should be bright for those, and some of your stories about founding and building Glaut. We could carry on all day, but we do need to wrap this up. So, Matteo, thank you very much for joining us from a sweltering Lago Maggiore in Italy, and I hope things cool down a little bit for you and your family. To everyone else, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Do keep coming back. We'll be adding plenty more episodes to this Founders and Leaders series over the next few weeks and months. And if you enjoy it or you have suggestions, do please send us your feedback. Matteo Cera of Glaut, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, looking forward to the next episodes. I'm a big fan of this.
Thank you.